And we're live. I think we are. Nope. Yes. 5 seconds into it. Yes, we are. But don't really need headphones because there's no audio feedback. From what it looks like, it's streaming better. If anyone's caught something, I had some live stream test earlier that did not go well at all. It was because I was trying to run through a thing called OBS Studio. So it's like a third-party encoder. Had I got that to work, I'd be able to bounce between this camera and a screen share so I could show you like something on a web browser or Google Maps or some videos I've shot but not uploaded, but I could stream it through the encoder so I can say, hey, here's some new stuff I shot related to like flood videos or flood coverage in Nebraska. And haven't had time to edit them yet. I've spent way too much time today trying to figure this out. And I still haven't figured it out. All I did figure out was to ditch the OBS studio altogether and then go straight through YouTube with this thing called the Cam Link plugged into a DSLR camera that's on a battery power. So I don't know how long that's going to last either. So if someone's watching, maybe one person is, that's cool. If you want to put something in the comments, yes, does that work? Yes, I think that's where that goes. Let me know if the sound and video is showing up. This is just going to be a test. I'm a little bit bored and also an adult with a family, so I don't actually go do stuff on Friday nights. I tinker until I get sleepy, which is about now. And also, I've been fighting off a head cold, which you might hear, kind of hear. It's not normally how I sound. Okay, so two people. Maybe they didn't hear anything. If you are hearing or seeing stuff, give me a confirmation. Otherwise, I got to end the feed, go back to see what got saved, save it or record it. Works fine and clear. Be well. Get some oil of. Oh, I imagine that might help with the congestion. I'm on the tail end of it. Like I feel like I'm coming around. Like the energy's kind of. The other day I was driving around in a truck, just achy all over, like functioning, but just not really 100%. But I will look that up. Oil of oregano, and olive leaf. I wonder, do I consume that? Lowers the viral load. Oh, okay. For a second I heard viral load and I was thinking computer stuff. Like, oh, is that my problem? But no, you're talking health stuff. Might have to look that up. I'm going to put that in Google search bar now because I'm going to forget that. Oil leaf. Is that something that people consume or is that like absorbed like a tea? Olive leaf extract 15%. Olive leaf benefits for cardiovascular health and brain function. Oh, okay, we'll leave that window open. I'm one of those guys that if you sit down at my computer, you wonder why in the hell do I have all these tabs open? It's because there's all these things I start, but never really get all the way through. So my browsers are constantly loaded. And I closed them all when I started to stream, thinking that would help reduce the download, upload burden, get pathogens out. I need to do that. That's a good idea. Get pathogens out, good things in. We'll look that up. Let's see. Oil of oregano was the other one. Oil of oregano. All right. I won't read this out loud to you. Sounds like you already know the information, but I'm going to leave it over here for myself for later. 2 viewers. Awesome. I assume they're probably subscribers. If you're a subscriber, let me know what you subscribe for. Not the pizza toppings, but the European version. Oh, yeah. Probably should clarify. My wife does this thing where she puts bay leaves in soup. Does anyone hear of something like that before? Bay leaf in a soup? Apparently it's supposed to add flavor. I don't notice the difference, but every time I have that soup, I'm the one that gets the bay leaf. Big spoonful. Sticks to your roof of your mouth. Terrible. Horrible palate sensation. Awful. I don't know why. I've I've heard of two. See, yeah, bay leaf is good too. Yeah, it terrible texture though. Like I said, she puts it in soup and she says it's supposed to make things good, but I'm a pretty bland person, so I don't know. I guess maybe it has a health benefit. Or maybe it's just a placebo effect. I can be like persuaded by a placebo effect. Maybe I'm um suggestible enough for that. Okay. So we got two people that I'm watching. I assume you might be subscribers. If you're a subscriber, I assume you are at least. What makes you subscribe? What sort of content are you interested in? This YouTube thing is kind of new. I mean, it's not new to me, but it's new-ish. Like I've been posting stuff, but I never really had an. But all of a sudden, started doing like these web videos of the Nebraska floods, and I went from like 1,000 to 4,000 subscribers. I went up like 3,000 subscribers. So I'm like, oh, I must be doing something right. Um, but the thing is, I don't like the idea of doing like disaster all the time. You know, like you could call it disaster porn or gore porn. Not gore porn. Great drone video. Okay, yeah, that's good. I don't want to chase drone. I don't want to chase floods all over the place. So I can't promise that's what it's always going to be. Grain mess and floods. I followed the weather and now the results. Yeah, yeah. The thing is, though, there's going to be this story's going to go for quite a while. So even if people want more information on flood after effects, the effect of it's going to be going on for years for some people. Not that I want to be talking about it for years, but there's you might have saw it in one video um, that there's some farmers that are trying to push sand off their fields. Like it's a lot. One of the most recent stuff I have shot, and I haven't posted it yet. I got to edit the video for it. Um, you could see the guy must have rented or owned a dozer, and he was just pushing sand to the edge of his field. And it wasn't like a little layer of sand, like it deposited probably a foot or two. It just seemed one of those things where is the juice worth the squeeze once you get it done? And maybe for a couple acres it is, but there's guys that might have like 50 acres of just sandbar. And what are you going to do? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, good content, great anyway. Yeah, thank you for that. I think we're going to be getting into hay season soon. Um so I'll maybe do some farm videos. What I wanted to do was uh like some of these podcast expanded topics where like I'll listen to podcasts because I'm always in a truck or a tractor or doing something like manual labor, and I got time to listen to stuff. Like you really don't need both sides of your brain to do that. Um, so like one side of your brain's operating machinery and the other intellectual side's engaged in something else entirely. It's kind of ghosted off somewhere else. So as I'm listening to these podcasts, like I'll screenshot something like, oh, this sounds really interesting. I need to get back to this and read up on it. Well, I experimented with a Joe Rogan clip where he was talking about, what was it? Atom smashing machine, particle smashing machines. And I thought that was really fascinating because I'm not into physics, but the topic, I'm like one of those guys that's just maybe has enough intellectual capacity to be entertained by it, but really not grasp it. So I delved into it, trying to understand why we almost had, when I say we, I mean like the United States almost had the world's largest particle collider back in the early 90s and it was abandoned. So I did a video trying to understand why that happened and how and what could have been had we built this particle smasher in Waxahachie, Texas. Um, that would have been, I think, 50 miles in circumference, if I'm remembering correctly. It would have been like a 50-mile loop. And the one in Europe The CERN, I think, is like 15 miles. So I want to say it could have been close to like 3 times the size, and 20 years earlier in the United States. So, the um, Higgs boson particle could have been discovered way longer before in the United States, and we abandoned it. So I did a video like that. In the future, I have a whole library of these screenshots where it's like, oh, here's something that's interesting that I want to expand on, or here's something that's interesting that I might disagree with. I don't like, I listen to political stuff, but I don't think I want to discuss political stuff, even though I don't really have a strong bias. I have like every everyone has their bias. Everyone has their inherent bias, um, and some more passionate than the others. But I really don't want to make that a regular thing. Like, maybe I'll converse on the topic with someone, but I don't want to like prognosticate or be preachy. I don't think I think we get enough of that on YouTube anyway. And I mean, it's a nice, easy way to get viral videos to say something shocking or insanely stupid, uh, and get a lot of clicks. I mean, I guess there's something good in that, but it feels kind of gross. I mean, I even feel a little gross getting the clicks I get just covering other people's misfortune, essentially. Like, I'm reporting on it, and in a way, I've profited by it. But like, when I factor in all my expenses on what it takes to cover, like, if I'm shooting drone videos, I'm not at work getting overtime. So there's income loss, and then you're paying for fuel, and then you're crashing a drone, which I've done, which has happened. That's going to be a different video. If you have questions about that, I'll answer them now. But I had a drone that had a little mishap. Took a little nap on a highway overnight for a couple nights during the flood. Uh, well, I'll give you the short version since it's a decent story. I was parked on the side of a highway, uh, and this highway had been closed. It was nice and quiet, nice place to pull the car over. And you might have seen in previous video where I put the drone out on the sunroof and I'm able to fly away. So I was doing that, and I was way off into the shoulder. Well, this happened to be shortly around the same time they opened up one avenue across the Elkhorn River, and 4 or 5 of the most popular ones have been closed. So people were trying to get out of Fremont to get to Omaha. Now, Fremont to Omaha is normally 20, 15, 20 minutes tops, just straight across the river and home. Oh, airliner photos. Yeah. Yeah, those were fun. That was a fun one. I'll maybe get back to that if you have questions on it. But back to the drone story. So instead of going just straight east from Fremont to Omaha, people had to go all the way up to Pilger. It was like a 3-hour drive to get across the river because the only place to cross the river was in Pilger. So all these cars started going past me, like just this really unusual traffic wave in this quiet little part of Nebraska. And I'm flying this drone off to look at this bridge that was closed across the water into this little dry spot, isolated. And as I'm flying there, this car starts pulling up next to me, and I look over, and I look at my screen, then I look over and look at my screen. And as soon as I look back down, and that guy's pulling in front of me to park, and I assume he's lost and he wants to ask for directions, and I'm the only guy that that looks local, and it's parked. So as he's parking his vehicle in front of mine on this shoulder in this rural highway, as soon as I look down at my screen, um, I get clotheslined by a high wire, and I can see the drone just do this like flip for a second, and then just lights out. Fortunately, I mean, if I was going to say something, fortunately, I made friends with the local power company guys, because they had caught up with me once prior when I was flying the drone, and they're like, "Hey, can you check out this power line since you're in the area?" And I was like, "Yes, I can." So as I was flying the drone back, we flew down a line of utility poles, and we found one where one pole had leaned over, and as it leaned over, it made these wires cross, and when it got windy, it would make them touch, and it interrupt the phase. And they're like, "Oh, there's our problem." Well, I guess this is karma coming back, where the crashing isn't karma, but when these guys had gotten into this highway that was closed, they got there through hip waders and trudging through it. They found the drone and they're like, "Oh, this must be, his." And they brought it back for me, delivered it to my house. So I guess there's something good in that. So did you, Dan? Did you, if you're still watching, did you have any questions about airliner photos? I mean, they kind of explained how you could do it yourself if you were so inclined to do so using that Flight Radar 24. Um, for some of you who don't know about the airliner photos, there's a website that's a live feed of radar stations around the country. So if you go to flightradar2424.com, you can see a radar signature for every plane in the air. I think you can look at every plane that's in the air and look at the commercial information. If it's military, you might see the signature, but there will be no information about it. Just that your arm length lend. Not sure if I understand. Just that. Hmm. Yeah, if you had a question, I guess expand a little bit. I might be missing some context. What was I talking about? Oh, what I was gonna say. On this notion of um, kind of having a peripheral benefit of helping out the Cumming County Power District to find a power line while I'm out shooting these videos. Um, the one thing that's kind of helped me feel a little more ethically sound with the idea that I had a couple popular viral videos that had some ad revenue, so I was paid, so to speak, on the issue. But the thing that made it feel a little more ethically good was, looks like you beat trolls with it. Just at your arm length. I guess so. Um, but the peripheral benefit of these videos has been like the Cumming County Sheriff's Department has been watching them, and they asked if they could use some of these videos to work with FEMA officials. The FEMA officials didn't quite understand like the scale of it, and they're like, "Hey, we could use these videos to kind of show them, how the land has changed." Because the way I've incorporated the drone videos with Google Earth images, it kind of gives them a sense of what's happening. So the sheriff's department's using them, and then an ad agency in Lincoln, Russell Simmons or Russell Simons, something like that. They wanted to shoot a pro bono fundraiser video, and obviously they didn't have a big budget to do this, but they asked if I had anything to donate. So I gave them as much as I had at the time on an SD card. I gave them like 60 gigs worth of 4K footage. And I said, just do with it as much as you can. Don't worry about payment. I was like, we're good. This is all for charity. So let's just make it work. Then the athletic department as well, I believe, UNL, the University of Nebraska Lincoln Athletic Department, has asked to use some of the video as well. So I told them, well, I already got 60 gigs at this agency in Lincoln. Just have them run it over to you, and they'll be able to watch it or share it with you. So there's been some externalities or peripheral benefit to shooting these flood videos. So that's good. Okay. Well, 20 minutes. It's been going 19 minutes and 20 seconds. Just been rambling. Uh, is there any 5 people just been listening to me babble? I guess you're as not busy as I am on a Friday night. So, if you had any questions, feel free to post them. Otherwise, oh yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Use the canoe. The Elkhorn scale is stunning. Oh, you used to canoe the Elkhorns. Oh, so you must be local. Yeah. Yeah, the scale is incredible. what was funny is like I've really never been on the Elkhorn in that area, and as we're on the airboat going north, it feels like we're just on the river. And Clay was the guy that was it was his airboat, and as he's taking us up the river, I just look at Clay as we come to our first stop. I'm like, where are we? I was like, what is this? He's like, we're in the lake. I'm like, how did we get in the lake? Like, I didn't even see it. It just felt like we were just on the river. And he knew the area well enough. So he was a pretty good guide as far as saying, hey, if you go up from here to shoot some drone videos, you'll see something. And that's where I got that one shot where you see that dry sand bed essentially that goes between the trees. That was the old river. And then you see like the trees that had been blown to bits and scattered through the old lake. And I was talking to a sheriff's deputy in Cumming County, and he was saying there's parts of that lake that were 40 feet deep, I think. He's like, now they're not because there's so much sand that once it got into the river just brought in so much sand and deposited it in that lake. The lake is now shallow. So who knows what happened to the fish that were in there? I'm sure there were some that were probably at the bottom thinking, something's going on. So I wonder. I also noticed there's a lot more wildlife on the roads. I was commuting to work one morning early. It was dark. I think I saw like two badgers. I never see badgers, but I'm pretty sure I saw two badgers going up and down the shoulder of a highway. That has never happened. They never do that. But when you think about it, badgers are burrowing out in the fields, uh, and the fields are all flooded. So I wouldn't be surprised if they swam out of there and got stranded somewhere along the highways. So I didn't really realize that. We always talk about uh, 6 foot of sand. We're used to have a pivot. Oh, gross. Oh, Sherman County, 6 foot of sand. We're used to have a pivot. Ugh, that is unfortunate. Um, there's only 5 of us watching. I'm going to assume at least one might not be a farmer. A pivot is where it's one of those contraptions that's used to irrigate a field. There's a center pivot where is the water source. Then you have a segment, and then, the wheels, and then another segment and the wheels. It's just a giant sprinkler system that spins or kind of travels in a circle through the field based on that one pivot point. They're not cheap, and usually the ground that it's on is highly valued. And to have 6 feet over of sand over a field, that's the county assessors are going to have a lot of fun trying to reassess all the land value. So taxes, I guess, are going to go down. Tax values are going to go down. Uh, I thought about calling different agencies, whether it's a county assessor or Nebraska Department of Roads, just getting more information, trying to record that conversation. Just like one of the questions I've had lately is trying to understand what do they, how do they prioritize which roads to fix? Like right now, there's a lot of focus on Dodge Street between just west of Omaha. If you're not familiar with the area, if you're trying to get into Omaha, Dodge Street is a pretty heavily trafficked way to get into Omaha on the west side, and that's all torn up. So I know that's high priority, but there is nobody working on Highway 30 between Nickerson and no, between Arlington and Fremont. When I shot some drone footage a couple days ago, there is nobody working on that between Arlington and Fremont. But there was one excavator and one side dump trailer pouring sand into the hole between Nickerson and Fontenelle. So someone's working there, but one of the guys on Facebook said that was a private company hired to do that. So where Nebraska Department of Roads has allocated all their resources, I don't know. I imagine it goes through a hierarchy of most traffic, but at the same time, there's a levee that was breached over by Ames between Fremont and North Bend. I just read an article on this. There's a pretty hefty gap, maybe like 1,000 feet gap in this levee system. And the guy was saying like there's a local board that's assigned to manage this levee system. He's like, we have a budget of like $30,000 right now for maintaining this levee. He's like, it's going to take millions to repair it. And he's like, no one's doing it right now. Nobody's doing any work on this levee system by Ames. It's along the Platte River. And the problem is, like, it's only April, and Colorado and all those other states are going to start getting their snow melt. And that snow melt's going to come down to us. We're already inundated with water. It's not like if we get another rise in water levels, it's got somewhere to go. Like we're full. So if we get more water downstream, as I understand it from reading this article, if we start getting more water from the snow melt going through June, he's like, if we get another flood, and we always get floods in May or June, like that's always, like, I got video from last year where the creek next to my place was pretty high. Well, like not as high as it was in the first video I posted with this flood of 2019, but it happens pretty often. If we get another flood like that, similar to last year's, on top of what we have now, like some of these towns will be back underwater. It's like it could happen. So they'll like people like talk about not wanting to live in Nebraska because of tornadoes. That's really a small problem. I've seen like maybe the start of tornado, but I've never actually seen a tornado. And the closest I've had one getting was maybe within 3 or 4 miles. And I've never really, I've had strong winds take down a barn, but tornadoes are a small issue. Floods are awful. Like, having seen what happened just now, floods are the worst. Because not only are they like more widely damaging, but their effects are more permanent. And if they come on top of each other, it's just going to be a bigger and bigger mess. All right. Okay, so I've been rambling for 27 minutes. It looks like this thing is working. Google the Great Flood of 27. We are in grief this season. I agree, Dan. I probably, if I knew more, or if I knew who to talk to, like find some old timer or maybe some retired Department of Roads guy, or retired county assessor guy that might be closer in historical relevancy to 1927. Like, I can't imagine how old someone that's like quite a stretch to find someone from that era that would know and speak of it. I can't imagine it exists. It's almost 100 years ago. But maybe if I found some sort of first generation descendant. Wiki has an article. Okay. I'll have to look that up. I'm going to put that in my Google tabs. Great Flood of 1927. Okay. Oh, I'll leave you with this. Earlier, I talked about listening to a podcast. There's Joe Rogan I listen to quite a bit, and he's had a guy named Randall Carlson. I'll just put that in the comments. Randall Carlson. If you look up any of his guest spots on the Joe Rogan Experience, Dan, I'll speak to you. On YouTube, Joe Rogan has all of his episodes. You can look up Joe Rogan and Randall Carlson. This guy goes around all over the place, particularly in the United States, just investigating where great floods had occurred. And his theories are really interesting. And some people call him fringe, but as they discover more, I think he's getting to be more accurate, and they're taking him more seriously, because he's had theories of like multiple instances where there's been a rapid ice melt, like a meteor will hit an ice cap or something, cause rapid ice melt, and floods will just wreak havoc everywhere. But I know he's discussed floods, maybe not like in modern era floods, but just historically speaking, the scale of them. Like there's, I guess at one point Nebraska was under a mile of glacier ice, and something made it melt, and what that would have done to our landscape. Like I think one theory is Morse Bluff and Council Bluffs could have been a river at one point thousands of years ago, which that'd be treacherous. That's huge. If you don't know the area, if you're not from this area, Morse Bluff to Council Bluffs is, I mean, it's going from North Bend to Omaha, essentially. I mean, sort of. I mean, that's where I know it. The Morse Bluff is. You'll have to look it up on Google Earth. And I would, if I had this OBS Studio encoder working, I'd just switch over to Google Earth and show you. But I'll have to troubleshoot that one another time. I was able to get it to live stream well and smooth, but I can't get it to switch between my windows. At least not at this point. Okay. Well, it is past my bedtime. Because I am a boring adult now, and we're at half hour, so it's working. And I know this battery will last for a half hour. Thanks for watching, folks. Thanks for subscribing if you've done that. And feel free to, good night, Dan. And feel free to send suggestions. I think if you go to my About page and check the email, you can see what the email is. So if you're like, hey, I'd like to see something like this, or here's a video that I really liked, go ahead and let me know. I'll try to do some more of that stuff. I'm going to go try some of that bay leaf. No, not bay leaf. Olive leaf, oil of oregano. I'll see if I have any in the house. I'll have to ask my wife. So thank you for that suggestion earlier. Subby moto, whatever. It's in the comments. You guys can see it. I'll see if I have some. All right. Have a good night.